I play the blues, you know, brings a sad feeling, you know, like when you're downhearted and you can sing about it, how you come, how hard you came up, or how hard you worked and all that kind of stuff like that. That's somebody down, you know. That's what the blues will really make you think about. But got me on there, you got me hiding, got me on it ever high, the way you want it. That's what I explain the blues, you know. You are down hard, having a hard time, or whatever, you know, I say, just get those sad blues, you know, kind of hit you out a little.
The fact is that guitar blues was never a popular style, and guitar players were so poor that the guitar was described as the starvation box. It was the outsider's instrument long before it became cool. Many of the early blues guitarists were blind and had no other means of earning a living on the road. It's hard for us to imagine today because blues guitar has become part of the bedrock of popular music, but in the 20s and 30s it had no significant commercial influence on the evolution of the guitar. That was all happening in the Hawaiian bands. And it was here that trouble was brewing, as the guitar simply wasn't loud enough.
Because the guitar is not naturally a very loud instrument, and in any case they were playing, the featured guy, you know, the guy who was playing the solos was playing it like this, the sound was going up into the rafters. That was the beginning of the efforts to amplify the guitar.
And it was all thanks to a laptop player named George Beecham, who teamed up with a Slovak violin maker called John de Piera, who had an ingenious idea using not wood, but metal.
You'll see inside there are 3 cones in here. This guitar resonating cone was invented the same year as the loudspeaker, and they look very similar. It's a conical thing with a crimped edge so it can bounce up and down. And these things basically amplify mechanically and project the sound. It's Victrola technology, it's not electrical. And the volume on this is absolutely incredible. I had the fortune of knowing Mr. Del Piero before his death, and one of the questions I asked him was, well, what did you think the first day when you first strung up the first one you made? And I never forget what he said. He said, I went home to my wife and I said, Jesus, we got a hell of a something here.
But it wasn't enough for George Beecham, who moved on to a hell of a something else. And the key was electricity.
You're crazy. Crazy, am I? We'll see whether I'm crazy or not.
Tinkering with electronics had become as American as apple pie and singing cowboys. Beecham was relying on a basic electrical principle to amplify the sound of the guitar's strings. That metal lump on this wooden prototype is called a pickup, and it's essentially a horseshoe magnet wrapped in a coil of wire. When the string is plucked, its vibration creates a disturbance in the magnetic field, which produces an electrical signal. It's this which was then amplified to take its place on the typical American bandstand. Blink and you've missed it. But this is the earliest known footage of Beecham's electric guitar in action.
I'm playing around with you.
Here's a 1930s Rickenbacker frying pan. You can see why they might have called it the frying pan. It's a cast aluminum. Neck and body is one unit. The strings are raised for Hawaiian style playing, and of course without plugging it in, not much volume there.
From this moment on, the electric guitar would be tethered to and absolutely dependent upon its mate, the amplifier. The instrument had changed forever.
So one can debate whether biological evolution took place or whether it happened as it did in the Bible, but I don't think anybody's going to debate that this is the first model electric guitar, and from this arose all those others.
At the very same time, a boy from Wisconsin was obsessing about how to get more volume from his guitar. That boy is now a legend, and he's still playing every Monday night in New York City.
He's a wild and sexy guitar god. Huh. And he looks pretty hot for 91.
Les Paul is the name on one of the world's most popular electric guitars, favoured by players from Jimmy Page to Slash, and his reputation as a sonic genius is secured by his invention of multi-track recording, featured in a string of hit records that he made in the 40s and 50s.
Here are Les Paul and his wife Mary Ford returning home from a Hollywood premiere to tell you about how they make Capitol Records right at home. They did the multiple recording of 10 guitars and 12 voices for How High the Moon at home here in Hollywood, and keep recorders in their New York apartment and even in their car.
Well, yes, this is the house where we made those records last year.
His career in music has followed the fortunes of the guitar and that perennial struggle to be heard. As Les himself put it, back in the 30s, more volume meant more tips, so he decided to electrify.
The first time I tried it, I used a phonograph pickup, took the needle and I put it right down here. And when I did that, I got feedback and all kinds of problems. And none of them were complimentary.
So you just took apart
your
father's Victrola?
No, I took the telephone.
You took the telephone?
Took the telephone. If you have a telephone, you talk into the transmitter, you talk into the center, and you're talking to somebody. That's a microphone. This part that you listen to is just two magnetic coils. Okay. Those coils are wound on magnets, and by taking those out of the phone and putting them under the string, I said, lo and behold, look what I got. Okay. So it was pretty simple. It was right in my living room. I didn't have to leave the living room to build an electric guitar.
But when he amplified his acoustic guitar, Les had all sorts of feedback problems. He began experimenting with more solid materials to get a cleaner sound. So he headed for the railroad track to see which worked best, wood or steel.
How did you find that? Watch. I live right next to a railroad track. I just borrowed a wagon without the horse, and 6 of us kids pulled the wagon with this railroad track. And we took the railroad track, suspended a string along it, and compared it to a soft piece of wood, like balsa, like pine. And when I heard the wood and I heard the steel railroad track, I went running to my mother and I said, hey, it's the railroad track. That's the answer. And Mother says, the day you see a cowboy on a horse playing up a piece of railroad track. And so that blew that away.
His mother had a point, and we'll come back to that. But Les had only just begun his adventures in electricity, and where better to pursue his quest than the electric city that was New York. When he got there, he seized the chance to conduct some unofficial market research on the electric guitar, as it reached its largest audience ever on NBC Radio. Les's jazz trio was performing nightly with Fred Waring at the Vanderbilt Theatre on Broadway. The performances were broadcast to an audience of millions via the radio, and many of the listeners wrote in with requests. Les played 2 sets a night, one on the acoustic and one on the electric guitar. The question was, which did everyone like best?
We said, well, let's take a vote on it. But you didn't have to vote. It was hands down. Everybody said electric. So I said to Fred, why did you pick the electric? He says, well, everybody hears you. and you can make your sound different than any other guitar player out there. And I said, well, that's basically why I want the electric guitar, is because I'm no longer a wimp with this guitar. I now am a giant, because the saxophone player, I can just turn that volume up. I can turn that volume up and I'm right in there with the best of them, you know.
Who the hell wants to hear